You're listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips, where we present audiobook quality readings of the classics for your enjoyment. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, just because you're a bumpkin doesn't mean you can't be cultured. Well, hello there. Good to have you back. Today we're going to be reading some Henry David Thoreau. And like always, the purpose of this podcast is not necessarily to put entire works onto audiobook form, but it's to get you, the listener, to say, oh, I read that and I enjoyed it as a kid or whatever, and I want to read it again. Or, I don't think I've ever read anything by him or her. Maybe I'll get on the old Google machine and look them up. So I think it has a way of sort of, broadening your horizons with regard to people's ideas and stuff. I like that. So Henry David Thoreau is no different. He was a very interesting fellow, maybe eccentric in some ways. And at one point in the 1840s, I think it was 1845, I think, he actually... he had a real love of simplicity and independence and nature. So he said, well, for 2 years, he's going to just live as simple as he can by himself. So he built a little cabin, and he's about to sort of describe that. And it's just, I don't know, looking back over the last couple years, I've personally come to a greater love of the outdoors and of solitude and things like that. And when I read Henry David Thoreau, I think, well, man, he was thinking those kind of thoughts many decades ago, 170, 80 something years ago. So anyway, I find him very interesting. And this is from Walden. He also wrote Resistance to Civil Government, which is also an interesting thought in lately. So yeah, I hope that after listening to this, you'll go look up some Henry David Thoreau and check him out a little bit, do a little reading, get in his head. So without further ado, this is an excerpt from the beginning of Walden by Henry David Thoreau. When I wrote the following pages, or rather the bulk of them, I lived alone in the woods, a mile from any neighbor, in a house which I'd built myself on the shore of Walden Pond in Concord, Massachusetts, and earned my living by the labor of my hands only. I lived there 2 years and 2 months. At present, I am a sojourner in civilized life again. I should not obtrude my affairs so much on the notice of my readers if very particular inquiries had not been made by my townsmen concerning my mode of life, which some would call impertinent, though they do not appear to me at all impertinent, but considering the circumstances, very natural and pertinent. Some have asked what I got to eat, if I did not feel lonesome, if I was not afraid, and the like. Others have been curious to learn what portion of my income I devoted to charitable purposes, and some who have large families, how many poor children I maintained. I will therefore ask those of my readers who feel no particular interest in me to pardon me if I undertake to answer some of these questions in this book. In most books, the I, or first person, is omitted. In this, it will be retained. That, in respect to egotism, is the main difference. We commonly do not remember that it is, after all, always the first person that is speaking. I should not talk so much about myself if there were anybody else whom I knew as well. Unfortunately, I am confined to this theme by the narrowness of my experience. Moreover, I, on my side, require of every writer, first or last, a simple and sincere account of his own life, and not merely what he has heard of other men's lives, some such account as he would send to his kindred from a distant land. For if he has lived sincerely, it must have been in a distant land to me. Perhaps these pages are more particularly addressed to poor students. As for the rest of my readers, they will accept such portions as apply to them. I trust that none will stretch the seams in putting on the coat, for it may do good service to him whom it fits. I would fain say something, not so much concerning the Chinese and Sandwich Islanders as you who read these pages who are said to live in New England, something about your condition, especially your outward condition or circumstance in this world, in this town, what it is, whether it is necessary that it should be as bad as it is, whether it is necessary that it be as bad as it is, whether it cannot be improved as well as not. I have traveled a good deal in Concord, and everywhere in shops and offices and fields the inhabitants have appeared to me to be doing penance in 1,000 remarkable ways. What I have heard of Brahmins sitting exposed to 4 fires and looking in the face of the sun, or hanging suspended with their heads downward over flames, or looking at the heavens over their shoulders until it becomes impossible for them to resume their natural position, while from the twist of the neck nothing but liquids can pass into the stomach, or dwelling chained for life at the foot of a tree, or measuring with their bodies like caterpillars the breadth of vast empires, or standing on one leg on the tops of pillars, even these forms of conscious penance are hardly more incredible and astonishing than the scenes which I daily witness. The 12 labors of Hercules were trifling in comparison with those which my neighbors have undertaken, for they were only 12 and had an end. But I could never see that these men slew or captured any monster or finished any labor. They have no friend Iolaus to burn with a hot iron the root of the Hydra's head, but as soon as one head is crushed, 2 spring up. I see young men, my townsmen, whose misfortune it is to have inherited farms, houses, barns, cattle, and farming tools. For these are more easily acquired than got rid of. Better if they had been born in the open pasture and suckled by a wolf, that they might have seen with clearer eyes what field they were called to labor in. Who made them serfs of the soil? Why should they eat their 60 acres when man is condemned to eat only his peck of dirt? Why should they begin digging their graves as soon as they are born? They have got to live a man's life, pushing all these things before them, and get on as well as they can. How many a poor immortal soul have I met well-nigh crushed and smothered under its load, creeping down the road of life, pushing it before a barn 75 feet by 40. Its Aegean stables, never cleansed, and 100 acres of land, tillage, mowing, pasture, and woodlot. The portionless, who struggle with no such unnecessary inherited encumbrances, find it labor enough to subdue and cultivate a few cubic feet of flesh. But men labor under a mistake. The better part of the man is soon plowed into the soil for compost. By a seeming fate, commonly called necessity, they are employed, as it says in an old book, laying up treasures which moth and rust will corrupt, and thieves break through and steal. It is a fool's life, as they will find when they get to the end of it, if not before. Wasn't that interesting? I love how he just sort of, he'll look at something really simple, and then he'll have this pretty deep thought about life, kind of philosophical or whatever. I like that. I don't always agree with him, but I like that he's a thinker. I really appreciate that about him, and it makes me want to read more of his stuff, and I hope you will too. And I really appreciate you listening. Really appreciate the ratings and reviews. Thank you so much to everyone that has taken the time to rate or review this show. As of today, January the 9th, year of our Lord, 2023, I still haven't got my new picture up on iTunes. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. It's up on the other ones like Spotify, but I haven't been able to get her done on iTunes yet. So anyway, hopefully that'll change soon. If you're listening on iTunes, be expecting a new picture soon. But thank you very much for the ratings once again. And also, anytime you can tell a friend, I always appreciate that as well. So hope you have a good one. Thank you very much for listening. You've been listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips. Thank you very much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, would you mind going and subscribing and leaving a nice review on whatever podcast platform? podcast platform you heard this on. I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.